Hello everyone, it is I, Mark SW. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the third part of my series of videos where I talk about how to do model shots on a very low budget. Now, in episode 1 I talked about constructing your model vehicles and buildings. In episode 2 I talked about setting up the scenery for your model shots. Now for episode 3 I'm going to talk about filming the models. So for this video I'll talk about some techniques and tricks you can use when filming your model shots. Now before you start filming your model shots, you need to understand about the film rate. See, all cameras film at 25 frames per second. Sometimes they do 30 frames per second, but that's normal around there. Now, when it comes to filming model shots, professionals use cameras that can film up to 2,000 frames per second. The reason is because that model shots happen very quickly. So say you have a model shot that wants to last for about 10 seconds, but when you're filming it, you're going to be filming it for 3 seconds. When filming at a higher film rate, it's like filming in slow motion. So it's like using the slow-mo motion for your iPhone, smartphone camera. The cameras that the professionals use, they cost thousands of pounds. But of course this is a low-budget model shot, so your iPhone, smartphone, or whatever they call it these days, this will do. And like I say, it's best to use the slow-motion camera. Now I know a lot of you will probably say, well, why not film with a normal camera, which is what I'm recording right now, and then slow the footage down when I'm editing it? Well, I'm going to give you a demonstration. We need to go outside for this. Okay guys, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to drop this metal pole into that tank of water. And I'm going to record from two cameras, my main camera and my iPhone, but I'm going to use the slow-mo motion on my iPhone so we can compare the different frames per second. Okay, so this is what the normal camera filmed at 25 frames per second. And this is from my iPhone with the slow-mo. See how much smoother and longer the pipe takes to hit the water and then the end to drop at the bottom. So now I'll slow the footage down on the 25 frames camera to match the timing with the slow-mo. See how jerky it moves? It's almost like looking at the footage from a security camera. And that's why models are shot at a higher film rate. But you can still film model shots with an ordinary camera, because it's always a good idea to film the model shots from two different cameras, then you can judge which one is better. Of course, the professionals would use two cameras that film at a high film rate, but sometimes with an ordinary camera, you may end up with a very successful model shot. You never know. Now, back in my first episode when I talked about moving vehicles, I showed you various ways of how to move a ground vehicle. The more common ways was either to push it along or to pull it along on a string. I also mentioned that you might want to use remote control vehicles if you want your vehicle to turn. But if you've got a vehicle that needs to turn and it's got no propulsion, then I recommend stop motion animation. I've got a friend who wants to do model shots just like what I'm doing, but he'd never heard of stop motion animation. He's never used it before. So for the benefit of those who've never done stop motion animation, I've prepared a little demonstration to show you. What I have here is a military truck that's going to do a sort of, I think it's called a handbrake turn as it comes to a stop just in front of this complex on a stormy day. So what I do is I roll the camera and move the vehicle slightly. Wait for a few seconds, then move the vehicle again, wait a few more seconds, then move the vehicle again, and so on and so forth. Now you may have noticed I'm doing it backwards, because sometimes when doing stop motion animation, it's best to do things backwards instead of forwards, because then when it comes to editing I can just reverse the footage. Here's a little tip. When you've moved your object, do something like clap your hands. That way you know where to split the footage. So move, clap, move, clap. It makes it easier that way. Plus, I prefer to film stop motion animation rather than take a photograph with a normal still camera. The reason because when you do take a photograph, there's always the risk that the camera can just shake slightly. Whereas if you're filming it, the camera is perfectly stationary. You've got no problems there, providing you don't knock it. And another point, if you are doing stop motion animation, try and use studio lights. Don't use sunlight because during the time when you're doing animation, the sun would have moved, so it's not a reliable light source. But in the end, you should end up with a model shot like this. And that's how stop motion animation works. I admit it does take time and you need a lot of patience, but in the end it is worth it. Also, going back to my very first episode, I mentioned when it comes to flying vehicles, there were two methods. The flying machine would be attached to 4 strings, or it would have 2 strings fed through the vehicle so it can slide from A to B. Now those type of model shots are ideal for filming in front of your sky background when it's stationary, but sometimes you may want the sky background to move. Well, the solution is simple. You use the rolling sky effect. What the professionals would do is get a conveyor belt, paint a sky background on the belt, and then when they turn it on, it looks like the sky is moving, and with the model in front of it, it gives that effect that it's flying. Conveyor belts are also used for the rolling roads effect. So instead of a sky, they would have a road with some terrain on the side, put their model ground vehicle on top of it, maybe fed a string through it, and then when they turn it on, it looks like the ground vehicle is travelling along the road. Now, those model shots I haven't been able to do because I don't have the resources. I don't have a conveyor belt, and I don't know much about electronics, so I can't build one. But I do have some editing skills to make up for it, which I'll get to in the next video. And if you don't have a rolling sky, then there is another way to help make your vehicles fly, and that's using the blue screen / green screen effect. What you can do is take a photograph of your object in front of a blue screen or a green screen, depending on what color it has. Take my model jet fighter for example. Because it's got some blue markings on it, I have to do it in front of a green screen. Because the idea is when it comes to editing, you can remove the background and you're left with just your vehicle. Now, if you haven't got a blue screen or a green screen, then don't panic. You can use anything else that's blue or green. So a bit of card, a box, as long as it's plain green or plain blue. As long as there are no other colors on it, then you should be fine. Now, don't worry if the photograph is not 100% perfect, because when you upload it onto the computer, you can use image editing software to modify it. So make it brighter, make the background more green or blue, things like that. Then when it comes to editing, you just add your vehicle to the scenery, remove the background, and then you can animate it flying across. But it's not just flying vehicles like aeroplanes and rockets and satellites. You can also use this technique for submarines, because if you think about it, a submarine is flying only in water. There's nothing underneath to support it. Keep in mind though, when you do take photographs of your vehicle, try and photograph it at different angles, not just the sides, the front, top, bottom. If you do different angles, then you can get a variety of different shots. Sometimes, here's a little technique, you could film your model on maybe a turntable, and then you can get various angles from it. Now don't worry, I'm going to explain some of these editing techniques in my next video. Talking of editing, we'll now move on to weather conditions, because some professionals like to bring in some weather to their model shots. I personally prefer to do that when I'm doing the editing. It's much better, especially because I'm working with small models, the 1:72 scale. There are 3 types of weather effects: wind, snow and rain. So we'll start with wind. Obviously professionals would use a fan to blow some dust, powder or some fuller's earth to create the impression that there are strong winds in the scene. But there's one thing you have to remember if you're going to use wind. Make sure you secure the models that you don't want to blow away or fall down. Unless of course you want them to blow away or fall down. Say like if you wanted to create your own tornado or hurricane scene. That's why when model makers build the model buildings, if they're going to be in a tornado scene, they would create loose bits so they would blow away in the tornado. For snow, what they would do is sprinkle some flour or some modelling snow onto the models. This can be quite effective with the smaller models. I've given it a try, but I haven't found a way to make it snow constantly in real life. I've relied on the editing effects for that. And it's the same for rain, because if I was working with larger models, I could create real rain. It's very simple, just maybe get a hose pipe or a watering can with a filter and then just pour it all over my model scenery and models, providing that the models are waterproof, of course. The reason why it would be difficult with smaller models is because the drops of water would be massive. So suppose you wanted a vehicle or a building to get wet in your rain scene. You want the drops of water to be tiny, not gigantic. But I've learned this little hack that's very useful. Suppose you have a scenery that's set during rain, just get some water and dab it around the scenery and it'll give that impression that there's been a storm or it's during a rainy storm. Then add the rain effect when it comes to editing. You can also add lightning effect to create the illusion that there's a thunderstorm. And like I said, I'll show you the editing techniques in my next video. That's coming up next week. And if you're looking forward to it, do subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you know when I upload it. So now we come to the bit that everybody loves about models, the explosions. Now this is very, very dangerous, so what I'm about to show you, do not try at home. When the professionals want fire and explosions in their model shots, they would have some professionals called pyrotechnics to make sure everything is safe and the explosions go off the way they're supposed to. Usually amateurs would use the explosive contents from a firework or even small grains of gunpowder to create their own explosions. But you need a license or a permit to use those type of materials. Also, when they want to set off their explosives, they've had to use fuses, whereas the professionals use remote-controlled detonators so they can get the timing right. Now, in real life, there are safe ways to create explosions. And one of them is with matches, which I'll show you, but we have to go outside for safety reasons. Okay guys, so how to cause explosions with matches? Well, it's a well-known fact that if you light a match without striking it, it sort of goes whoosh. The best way to show you is to give you a demonstration. Now, what I'm going to do is quite dangerous, so do not try this at home. Remember, matches are not toys. I've also set up a slow-mo camera to show you this from a different angle. So, here we go. Hopefully the wind doesn't put out the match. Yeah, it has. That's the trouble with filming outdoors, there's always wind trouble. There we go. See what I mean? How they've just together. That's the best way I describe it. And of course I'm doing it on stand for safety, so let's just put this out. If you're going to film with fire, always have sand and water on standby for safety. Now, what you can do with the matches is you can take off the heads and grind them down into making a sort of powder, and then you could do an explosive model shot like this. So what you're creating there is a sort of chain reaction, one match lighting another and another and another. And of course, as I mentioned, if you take all the heads off and grind them into a sort of powder, then you have a sort of explosive powder. So it's useful for if you want to create a fiery type explosion. If you wanted to create a more destructive explosion, well, I've used these in some of my model shots. These are crackling balls. They're not too destructive, and as long as you keep a meter away from them, then you should be fine. These are ideal for when you're working with these smaller model shots. Now, I'm not going to light one of these right now, of course for safety reasons, but here's a model shot I did earlier to give you a demonstration. Again, it's filmed in slow-mo because it's more effective. The fuse lasts for about 3 seconds, and then the bangs would last for about 5 seconds. So you see, it's not just one bang, it's several bangs these firecrackers have. And I've put down some matchsticks heads so I can spread the fire throughout this complex. And because it's slow motion, you get to see all this debris flying everywhere, just like a real explosion. So you can see just how effective these crackling balls are. But they are very dangerous, so like I said, don't try this at home unless you know what you're doing. And because they're dangerous, like all fireworks, you should keep them in a container with a closed lid. So they're nice and safe in there. Make sure you have sand or water or even a fire extinguisher on standby if the fire gets out of control. And of course, do them outside, never inside. You don't want to set off any fire alarms. This is why I always do my fire or explosive scenes outside, because I have the sand. But if I wanted to do like an explosion in either a city or an industrial zone, just like that complex you saw, what I have here is one of those boards where I've painted it grey to look like concrete, and I can just do all my fiery effects on it. One little advice though, just like with the wind, you may want to secure your models to your base or deep in the sand or soil. Even the matchstick heads are quite powerful, because you saw it to manage to break apart the vehicle that I demonstrated. You can also attach loose parts to your vehicles or buildings if you actually want them to break apart or disintegrate in your explosion. Land explosions are very easy to do, but if you want to do an explosion on the surface of water, in the air, or in space, they are done completely differently. I don't have the resources to do any of these explosions, but I can explain how the professionals do it. If they wanted to do an explosion on the surface of water, like in the opening credits of Stingray, what they would do is place an explosive charge in the pool and then detonate it by remote control. The trick is not to use a powerful explosive charge, because the last thing you want is to flood the entire studio with all that water going up in the air. If they wanted to destroy an object on the surface of the water, they just plant the charges inside the object and let it rip. It's the same for destroying an object in the sky. So say you want to blow up an aircraft, you place the explosive charge inside your model, and then you would position it either in front of your sky background or green screen or blue screen, and then detonate and destroy the aircraft. Keep in mind that all that debris from the aircraft will fall downwards. In space, that's completely different. Because there's no gravity in space, you want the debris to go everywhere. To create a zero gravity type explosion, the idea is the professionals would hang the model that they want to destroy on the roof and paint the roof completely black. They would then position the camera facing upwards towards the spacecraft and cover it up with a protective sheet. So then when they detonate the charges, all the debris from the spacecraft will fall downwards towards the camera to create that sort of zero gravity effect. Simple but effective. Of course, if you don't want to destroy your models, or you can't do explosions in real life, there are editing techniques that you can use for creating destructive scenes, which, like I said earlier, I will show you in the next video. So in the fourth video, I'll talk about editing techniques on how to make your vehicles fly, create explosions and certain effects. So if you've enjoyed watching this video and learning some filming techniques, then do give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell so you know when episode 4 is uploaded. And if you have any questions, do leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember, if you are going to do these type of model effects, stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Over and out.